All right, today we are continuing with our discussion of sacred spaces and rituals in art. And this is a really great example of rituals because this isn't really a space, this is an object, and we're looking at the transformation mask. So this is a Native American artifact. It looks like it may be really old, but it's actually not that old. It's from the late 1800s. But this is a very old style that's very traditional and significant to the Native American population up in the Pacific Northwest. So think like Washington and Oregon. And these were a mask that was designed to be actually worn. Even though these things are actually pretty big and they have all these moving parts and they're made out of wood, which would be really heavy, they were meant to be worn on your head during a ceremony. And the ceremony is actually called a potlatch, which is funny because it sounds sort of like the word potluck. This is actually the root of that word. So what we think of as a potluck is usually like a gathering where people bring different kinds of foods and celebrate.
Casseroles.
Yeah. So, it's meant to be like a happy occasion. And a potlatch is also a happy occasion. So it's celebrating a victory or, possibly a union or something like that, right? And so you'd wear these masks in a celebratory day. The masks were meant to be representative of their ancestors and the gods. So when you have the mask closed, often it takes on the form of like an animal. So in this specific example, it's a thunderbird. And in other examples, it might be, all kinds of different animals. And then when you pull on some strings, it would open and then reveal this human-like face. All right, so the belief was that the different gods and ancestors did have that ability to transform from a human form to an animal form.
Right, so these would sometimes take months or even years to complete. You can see all the detail that the artist, even though this was something utilitarian in nature, so something they would use as part of this ceremony, these artists still wanted to make them beautiful because they would use them, for years and years. And so they would spend a lot of time hand painting these, and you can imagine how heavy they might be to wear, which tells you it was something that was great importance to them if they were willing to wear these and dance and be part of this potlatch ceremony.
Right. I mean, these were not designed to be disposable. They were meant to be passed down from generation to generation. Unfortunately, we just don't have that many left anymore because during the late 1800s into the early 1900s, there was a great fear when these were discovered by Europeans that
they really thought it was kind of like witchcraft almost.
Right, because they were just misunderstood. So a lot of these were confiscated and even destroyed. So we're still trying to piece all of that history back together. And, you can still see some of them in museums. They're around. There's just not as many, unfortunately.